So design notes. So this is really a love story, but don't worry, it's not your typical love story. I'm not going to bore you with that. This is really about my two passions, love in life, which are music and architecture. And incredibly enough, they were both kind of defined for me at an early age in the 4th grade. And this also was like the defining moment of me, both professionally and personally, as I moved forward in life. So those of you out there, you high school students, what I want you to take out of this presentation is really, embrace any of your personal passions that you have, because you'd be surprised how important and valuable they're going to be for you as you move forward in your professional career. So, this is one of my most valuable items, and not monetarily, but emotionally. So this was a cornet. It's 160 years old, and it was actually the cornet that my pop-pop played, and pop-pop is what we call grandpa. So every summer, between school semesters, we would drive with the family from Tampa, we'd drive up to Clifton, New Jersey, and spend the summer with Pop-Pop. And these were wonderful times. I loved doing it. And I would spend hours with him, playing cards, gardening, but most importantly, playing music. And one of our favorite activities was, he was teaching me how to play, and one of our favorite activities was that he had all this sheet music, and I would go through and pick something out, and he would play the piece, and then I would repeat it back to him. And really, it was this wonderful, magical moment that I always remember. So the summer before 4th grade, when we went up, he actually gifted this to me, and it has become my prized possession. And that's really what defined, in that moment of my passion for music. So architecture, it's a little different. It's not as easily defined, and it's a little cloudy, but I wanted to be an architect for as long as I can remember. As soon as I could walk and talk, if people would ask me what I wanted to do in life, it wasn't a policeman or a fireman or a football player, it was to be an architect. And I don't know where that came from, and my family doesn't know, because no one in my family is an architect, and none of our family friends were architects. So for me, my personal explanation is the Brady Bunch, because Mr. Brady was an architect, so that is my excuse. But there is a defining moment, and that moment is in the 4th grade. We had a show and tell, and all the other students, all my friends, they were getting their parents to gather together their favorite pets and their bicycles to take to school. Well, I got together this big long list that I gave to my mother of all these construction materials, and I requested, remember there's no Amazon or anything, I requested a book on Tudor architecture. So for show and tell, I show up, I took all the plans and the elevations, and I built this scale model, and I took it to school. And so you all may be asking a couple questions in your mind, and I'll answer them. And number one is, why the hell didn't I take in the cornet? And I don't know. And number two is, why was it a Tudor home and not a Cape Cod? And that I also cannot answer. I wanted a Tudor home. But if this doesn't prove to you that I was meant to be an architect, then I don't know what would. And so really, in my life starts, in the 4th grade, my two passions, music and architecture. And they seem so different. But I'm going to go through how really they tie together and how music has really influenced me as an architect. That'll be in a moment. But right now, I wanted to go to high school. So that very handsome stud right there with the baritone is me. So, and I'm looking at the slide here. Why there's a 20-foot killer squirrel next to me in the yearbook, I have no idea. That's a whole different subject. But back to me and the band. My favorite class, obviously, in high school was the music class. And I love collaborating with over 100 other students. And again, though, I have a defining moment in high school. And what that was is, for the orchestra, I got to conduct and be the conductor. And I'm walking up, and all these wildly different instruments. You have the brass, and you have reeds, and strings, and percussion. They're all warming up, and tuning, and playing, practicing. And I walk up, and I pick up the baton, and I step up on the podium, and everyone stops. And paying total attention to me, lift the baton, everyone brings their instrument into the playing position, and then they follow me in every movement as I direct them. And to me, this is a really powerful, and it really resonated with me, and it was very influential as I went on in life, of what this meant. So, getting back to music and architecture and how similar they are, I kind of divided this up into my career into 3 different phases. And the first phase is preparation. So in music, you're so excited, you get a new piece of music to play, and you just don't pick up your instrument and start playing. You have to study and review. And so it could be days or even a week that you're just going through and you're studying it holistically. And what did the writer mean? What is the meaning of this piece? What is it supposed to tell? What story? Then you review it for your section. So I played French horn. So what did that mean for the French horns? When were you out front, and when were you more behind the scenes? And then individually you would study it for each of the notes. How was the note played? Was it staccato or not? And after all this studying you would go through, then you would pick up and you would start to perform. And this is a project that I thought represented that idea of preparation. So this is Aiken Gum, which is a renowned global law firm, and we were doing their offices in Washington, D.C. And you see this picture and you think, oh, that's really easy, and you just build it and you're done. But before we even began to design, we spent 3 years doing reviews, studies, and analysis. And what that means is it's the exact same thing as the sheet music. We look at it globally. What does Aiken Gum mean? What does it mean to be an employee of Aiken Gum? And then locally, what are the core values? And then you get into the specifics of this individual project. And what is the program? How many offices? How many secretaries? How many associates? Et cetera, et cetera. And then what are the views? What is daylighting? How does the core work? How do the people, how do they focus in this space? How do they collaborate? How do they learn? How do they play? And you review all of this, even to the mundane to the parking. What does it mean to park in this building? So after going through all of this, 3 years, we reviewed 1,750,000 square feet, which is over 8,500 football fields, a space before we figured out the ideal location, the ideal layouts for Aiken Gum. Then we put the pen to paper. And once pen hit the paper, we ended up with this absolutely incredible project. So after all that preparation and hard work, you get into the performance. And the performance is really bringing all these disparate elements together to create beauty. An orchestra. So in architecture, there's a saying that I love, that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And it's really incredible if you think about it. And what's fascinating is that actually goes back to Aristotle. But in architecture, music, and even in race cars, it's extremely important, because you could have the best race car, the best driver, the best crew, but without them all acting together in unison, you can't cross the finish line. And that's exactly what my job on this project was. It was a very challenging project that I had to bring to conclusion through the construction administration phase, which means building of the project. And I had to have hundreds and hundreds of different laborers and different teams, and I had to direct them all in order to create this singular, beautiful building. And I'm going to go through that a little bit deeper on this slide. And this looks simple and clean. It's the cafe on a typical floor. But getting this built was coordination of hundreds of people. There were the mechanical engineers, the electricians, the plumbers, the mill workers, the furniture dealers, there's the drywall, there's glass, flooring, et cetera, et cetera. And this is where conducting the orchestra in high school really came back, of how do you guide a bunch of different people, all these different laborers, all these different unions, and get them all to work together to create something that's a beautiful end like this. So the final, the final phase is really the ovation, and I think this is the most critical of the phases that you go through in a project or in a music piece, because in architecture and music, it's really represented by the concert or by a workplace, and this is really about the human experience. So I want everyone, like for a second, just to think about who is your favorite musical artist or group. Okay? And then put yourself though when you went to go see them in concert, and the feeling that you had, and the excitement and the energy, and how inspired you were. Well, that is the goal that we have for every one of our clients. It's to make them and their employees, when they move into this new building or new workplace, that they're all energized, they're excited, and they're most importantly inspired. And this is done by making the space meaningful, thoughtful, and most importantly, believe it or not, is fun. So fun. This project was a blast working on. So Capital One is an incredible client, and I've been very proud to work with them on numerous projects, from their headquarters in Tysons, Virginia, all the way up to New York. And what's really great about them is they're a very forward-thinking company. So we would collaborate together on these very innovative and outside-the-box workplaces. And this is done by breaking down traditional barriers. And what I mean by that is that we looked at their projects, and they have teams that go through these phases of ideation, and then realization and creation, and they're always evolving. And so how do you make a room, how can it change pretty seamlessly from 2 people to 20 people when the team requires that? How can you reconfigure static walls and make them movable so that when the space has to be redesigned in an instant, you can just go around, move walls, and create what the team needs? How can the furniture be movable? And more importantly, how can you have different kinds of furniture? Because people work differently. Working in a lounge setting is totally different than working at a table and computer. And we had to get down to the smallest of details, is the electrical. If you put a plug in the floor on the wall, it pretty much defines on where your workspace is going to be. So having electrical overhead that was totally flexible and can plug in anywhere. So when people ask me, what do you see the future of the workplace, this is really an example of something that's really incredible and outside the box. So my goal as an architect, as a designer, is really to provide a building or a space for the client that will allow the employees to thrive, to do their best work, and to reach their maximum potential. And I really think that this project is one that has done that. Typically, the workplace, it would be the architecture defines how people work. And what we've done here is we have the people define how the architecture works through all these flexible systems. And the architecture has actually become an integral part of their culture. So this has been kind of a quick review, and it's been really meaningful to me to look back on my life and really see how all, music and architecture is tied together, and the incredible bond. And starting in the 4th grade, and what that meant to me and how it defined me both personally and professionally. And my life has really been a learning experience since then. And what I'd like to leave you all with, especially the high school students, is to enjoy your journey, enjoy the music, and be passionate about all that you do. And to remember, the great leaders are like the best conductors. They reach beyond the notes to reach the magic in the players. Thank you.